Okay, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, some are not, but welcome nonetheless. Thank you so much for registering for our Right from the Heart webinars. And just to greet everybody, I just would like to know where you're from, where you're joining from. So kindly go to our chat button here and just tell me nasaan kayo ngayon. And let me check if there's an pure English speaking dito para at least I can adjust if that's what you need. But most of the time, we're going to do bilingual. Okay, para mas okay. Pangasinan, Nueva Ecija, Cainta, Nueva Ecija, Bacolod, Antipolo, we're all over the country. Yeah, this is fun. Bulacan, of course, Difun Quirino. Hi, Jenny. Marikina, merong nasa Lapu-Lapu. Is this Lapu-Lapu here in Cebu? Is this correct? Well, we have from New Zealand. We also have from Dubai, Isabela, Zamboanga City. Exciting. We have an exciting mix of audiences tonight. All right, I think that's it. Oh, hi. We have two lawyers tonight. We have attorney Richard and attorney Jessel. Welcome po. And thank you for joining. I also see fellow Toastmasters. Hello, mga taga Toastmasters. We have President Carl from what club, President Carl? Are you here
Barangay
already?
po.
Welcome ha, and good luck sa division contest. I think this will be on Saturday, right?
Sa May 19 po.
Sa May
Thank you, TM.
19. Oh, we have another. I think we have another Toastmaster here tonight. I think baka later mag-join si President Reyes. She's from Educators Toastmasters Club. Okay, everybody, I think that's it with our pleasantries. Let me go straight to what we're going to learn tonight. Ready na ba kayo? Do you have your pens and your notebooks? Anything that you can use for note taking? Although the sessions will be recorded, I think I'd like to motivate or remind you that sometimes inspiration come to us in unexpected places. So if you get inspired by a thing or two, and you have to write down ideas para hindi nyo makakalimutan. Hello, Luvi, miss you. Marami ako sa inyo nami-miss dito because nagkasama tayo ng matagal when I was there in Region 3. All right. So let me start this with an experience I had just recently. Anyone familiar with French baker? I so love this. When we were young, as in so young back in Makati, my father would take us to SM, for example, and then we would wait for the time na mag 9 p.m. na. You know why? It's because we were waiting for the 50% discount. How many of you are doing this? So now that we have moved here in Cebu, and then a few days ago, I was with the kids. We were kind of celebrating, I guess. And then we passed by doon sa SMC side. Pagpasok namin, sabi ko, parang gabi na kasi we just had our dinner at Zubuchon. Then, nakita ko yung French baker, although pinupuntahan namin palagi. And then I realized, oh, it's already 9 p.m. and people were queuing up doon papunta sa ano. And then nakipila na din ako. And then memories just flooded me about the many wonderful days that I remember this kind of experience I had with my father because he already passed away before my firstborn, no? Bago pa siya pinanganak. Kaya when I was flooded with these emotions, I realized that it was already part of the legacy that he had shared with us, his children, his family. Kaya ngayon, nung nakapila kami, I was telling my kids, you know what, when your lolo was alive, this was one of the things that we'd love to do together. Like, waiting for 9 p.m. para na makakuha ng 50% discount sa bread ng French baker. Okay, why am I saying this, ladies and gentlemen? It's because tonight, we're going to dig into the world of legacy building, no, legacy inking. I call my authors legacy inkers because I believe that beyond writing per se, that you want to promote yourself, you just want to write a book, there are so many reasons why we want to write a book. And some just write for, extra income, passive income, because you know this, when you have a book that really sells so much over time, then definitely it can be a passive income for all of us. And it happens to a lot of people. Now, there are also people who are writing for the sake of a bucket list. Like, I want to do this year. So I'm going to tick off the box once I'm done. And then the vision is kind of shortened that way. Doon lang, hanggang doon lang. And yet there are people who are going to write a book because they want to build their authority. They want to use this to expand.
Ayo, yung audio mo nagkakaproblema.
Wala ba? Sandali ha. Let me check. Okay. Can you hear me
Maliwanag.
well
Putol-putol.
right now? Putol-putol ako.
Okay na ngayon.
Maliwanag sa akin, sister.
Maliwanag. How about the rest? I'd like to check that maybe it's from the connection of some people or what. Clear naman ba kay Adrian? Clear naman din. Jenny?
Okay naman po sa akin.
Kindly check, Jenny, maybe it's your connection because everybody's saying it's loud and clear.
Okay na siya ngayon.
All right, good. All right. So I hope hindi mo na-miss yung French baker na story ko, ha? Okay. So I was telling about the reasons why people would want to write a book. And definitely I tell you that this is the new business card. This is the new business card. Instead of just handing your business card, you hand out your book and then tapos na ang usapan. You have properly introduced yourself. Okay? That is to say you wow people. But tonight until Saturday, you're going to find out that it's beyond that. It's beyond the usual reasons why you should write a book. Okay? And I'm going to reveal that in a while and how we were going to achieve altogether that kind of vision that extends not only to you, but to your generations to come. All right? So with this, we're going to tackle tonight how to write a poetry book. Just a brief introduction about myself. I'm a mother of 4, juggling a lot of things. I'm homeschooling all 4 of them. And I do journal writing daily since 9 years old. But today, I'm just doing that on Facebook mostly because mas madaling magsulat na ngayon doon. But whenever I can transfer some of those notes back onto my journal, I do that as well. I'm an avid reader, like really reading a lot from all across genres. So mahilig ako, especially when it comes to children's classics. Medyo hindi nawawala ang pagkagusto ko dyan. I love dystopian, so many things that I love to read. I also love, when it comes to poetry, haiku, tanka, and blank verse. Although, gustong-gusto ko ang tanka. And then, of course, the free verse as well. Now, I have a son who published his poetry book at age of 10. That was during the pandemic. He's already 12 and is writing another book. This book was a haiku collection. I also have a daughter who published her flashy, scary stories at the age of 8. We joined the National Book Development Board exhibit in Cebu a few months back. She's only 8. And then I also work in our church as a church manager for welfare and self-reliance services. So basically, we're dealing with how we're going to help people find jobs, get better education, employment opportunities, even handling financial matters. I was also the charter president of the Pinoy Writers Toastmasters Club, meaning practically new club in Toastmasters last year. And currently the president of the City of Angeles Toastmasters Club, which is based in Angeles, Pampanga. And we also have our GMJ Publishing, a business that was born out of necessity. And I'll tell you the story in a while. I have been certified as an online coach by the School for Online Coaches and the certified author and editor at National Book Development Board, and currently processing my certification as a publisher. Okay, enough about me. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, the new business card. You wouldn't believe this. A lot of people told me poetry doesn't sell. Poetry doesn't sell. How many of you here are writing poetry? Can I see that on the chat box? Ilan na sa inyo dito ay nagsusulat na ng poetry? You already have a poetry book or you have a sufficient number of poems that can be organized into a collection. Meron na ba? I need to know how many of you or who among us here ay nagsusulat ng poetry. Poems. Yay! Meron. Meron. Because this will give me an idea where to delve into. Kasi I might assume that all of you knows about poetry, whereas hindi pa pala lahat. So I need to know para alam ko kung saan ako aatake more so you can appreciate what it is. And to those who already know how to write it, then I can give an additional input about this. Okay, that's good. Thank you for your answers. These are the poetry books that I wrote and co-wrote with other authors, and some of these are anthology books. Metamorphosis is an anthology book, meaning there are a lot of writers who contributed for this. The same thing for Sensibility. This Yearnings is purely mine, and Chiaroscuro, which is my poetry translated into Italian, French, and Spanish. This Iwakare is also a Tanka collection, poetry book yan, that I co-wrote with two other writers. One is Eileen Artabios, a renowned Filipino-American writer and editor. Okay? So when I started writing my books, which was not really that far distant, siguro mga ilang years ago lang, that took on a different path for me. And I didn't really expect that it would boost me as much as it did because I wasn't really expecting a lot. And a lot of people told me, why poetry? It's boring. You cannot sell that to a lot of people. Ang dami talaga nag-discourage sa akin. But I took a stand because for me, it's my expression. It's my expression of who I am. It's an expression or a celebration of my life. Recently, I also published my newest poetry collection entitled Chasm from Bards from the Far East, which is an anthology, meaning maraming writers. Now I go for writing solo na. Kasi I'll tell you the reason. Because pagka ikaw ay nagsisimula pa lang magsulat, meron kang mga agam-agam ka sa puso mo, right? That you are not good enough. And medyo you're trying to get a good grasp of ano yung pinapasukan mo. And sometimes when you're in the company of confident and seasoned writers, it boosts your morale. It boosts your confidence that I'm in the right place. So I might as well join this collaboration, anthology, and it's a good start. If you can still go for a solo poetry book, walang problema. Up until such time that you gain practice and then you know the rudiments, the basics of writing it and everything in between, then definitely I tell you, you can go solo already. Just to tell you of the beautiful experience, the path that led me to where I am today, it's because of that solo poetry book that I published, self-published. Because at the time, di ba, hindi ba tayo kilala? Wala naman pumunta or nag-offer ng traditional publisher at nagsabi, hey, we want to publish you. Mostly, that's the path of newbie writers. And if you don't have the connection, you don't know exactly what to do, minsan ang hirap. And even those who are really good writers are also turned down by several publishers before they get the next big thing. Di na tayo lalayo, my favorite author, J.K. Rowling, was declined by publishers many times before the first Harry Potter book was finally there, before it took off. Same thing for Rupi Kaur, same thing for mga kakilala nyo mga authors na gusto niyo. Mostly, the story is like that. So marami iba't ibang mga journey ang pinagdadaanan natin. But just letting you know, because of my poetry books, I was able to experience all of this. Even host my own TV show because the person I invited during my book launch was the general manager of a local TV station in Pampanga. And he was there and he saw it. And then just after a few days, he told me to come and then I signed a contract with him. That's it. Nagkaroon tayo ng TV show. And then after that, because of the collaboration, the network started to expand. Marami tayong nakilala. Joining Facebook groups, the authors are there from elsewhere, iba't ibang bansa. Kaya when nagsimula ako ng anthology projects, I started joining them. May ibang taga-Europe, nasa Asia yung iba, yung sa America. So, ganon. Nagkakaroon ngayon ng lumalawak ngayon kung sino ka. And because of that, I was able to enjoy a lot of beautiful collaborations. And so much that I was able to get the Italian community through my friend. And that's it. We are publishing Italian authors. Di ba? Ang ganda. Pero nung nagsisimula, parang pag binasa ko nga ngayon yung una kong sinulat na mga tula, ha? To be honest with you, talagang minsan nagkikringe ako, did I really write this poem? They're good for nothing. Ganun yung feeling minsan ng isang writer eh. Even you think you've done too much, but when you reread them, it's as if something is still lacking. And it's a good attitude as well to continue with that kind of attitude na hindi ka pa done. You still have a lot of things to learn, okay? And then yun na, marami, and because of that I was able to build a business, and tuloy-tuloy na. Dati ang tagal dumating ng cheque ko sa Amazon. It took me, I think, more than 2 years before ako nakatanggap ng cheque sa Amazon. But when it came, dire-diretso na siya. But the process, I'm telling you right now, hindi pare-pareha. Some would really would take off immediately. Others will have to wait for a while. And regardless of what happens, the question is, why are you publishing your poetry book? That's it. Okay? And ito lang yung mga highlights. I was also invited kay Rico Hizon during the CNN Live, and then Our Story. Love Story was featured on MMK. You know this, 3 years ago. It was one of the top-rated episodes, especially for love episodes. And we were invited nga to join MMK's last hurrah doon kay pero hindi kami nakarating sa kasi ang layo, Manila na, so hindi kami nakapunta. That's it. And now if I have somehow piqued your interest and excited excite ko ba kayo ng kaunti sa naging journey ka? I hope I did. Because I'm just telling you nga na marami kayo magiging journey, and I'd like to hear that journey when time comes for you. Pag dumating na yung unang publication mo, ano yung mga naging struggles mo, mag-usap ulit tayo. And I'll be cheering for you and rooting for you. Now, let's go straight to our, papakita ko sa inyo to. This is an example of a book trailer na ginawa ko para ma-appreciate nyo na even if it's a poetry book, you can do all the things you want to market it professionally, creatively.
Our story began when the gods hallowed the swan, unblemished by sun. Then took 5 feathers, equal in sheer elegance, not as light as cans, each representing sky, earth, sea, wind, fire, formidable 5. Far in the Orient, where fruits are rich and succulent, and hearts are not faint, 5 souls will emerge. Their uncanny gift will purge the unworthy herd. The quills they will wield, they are given the rare chance to restore balance. Bards from the Far East, doomed to immortality, our time has arrived. In the darkest night, we usher the glorious dawn of the golden age. Bards from the Far East, anthology of haiku and kindred verses. In stores this December of 2017.
That's it. That was the journey in 2017 with just one poetry book, and then it took off. It took off. Ito naman yung aking next book na I decided to go solo, but still invited a few writers to just contribute one of their poems. But then most of it, like 90% of the book, lahat yan sinulat ko. This is your... That's it. Okay? Just sharing, parang ako nagiging nostalgic din ako ngayon seeing this. And ito nga, because of this, I was able to publish then, build my business, and we have over 300 published authors worldwide. The question is, will you be our next legacy inker? Ikaw na ba ang susunod? I hope you are. Kaya lang, there are a lot of reasons why people don't write or cannot write their book or cannot finish writing their book. Because number one, it is tedious. Especially if you're a newbie writer, I don't recommend na you will go for a full-blown book na napakadaming pages, 10,000 to 40,000 word. No, you don't even go for fiction writing if you're not very familiar with it. So iwasan mo yung pagiging ma-burn out ka sa pagsusulat because you definitely will ditch it. Dapat kailangan mo ng mga konting subo lang, something that you can do while you are performing your work, you're studying, just to let you know na, I can do this pala. The imposter syndrome is real. Doubting your abilities. Magaling ba ako? Ang dami kong wrong grammar. Hindi naman ako magaling sa English eh. Well, if you're going to write in Filipino, no problem. If you're going to go for bilingual, no problem. Again, it's all about personal style. However, this gets in the way for a lot of people. They just don't trust that they cannot do it. The other one is weighed down by conundrums. Hindi ko alam kung paano ito ipapublish. I don't know if people will buy it. Ang dami mong problema and you cannot find your solutions. Lack of motivation. A lot of people start very motivated. Ang dami ko nang na-coach because of my Ink Your Legacy book writing course. Marami pa rin hindi nakakapagsulat. It's because, according to them, hindi na sila na-motivate. I don't believe in motivation. What I believe in is more than that. And that is discipline. I always work with discipline. Kahit wala akong motivation, kahit hindi ko feel magsulat, nagsusulat ako. It's part of it. And a lot of people do not put deadlines on their goals. Kaya hindi sila nakakapagsulat, when will you write your book? Next year. What year? You have to emphasize. You have to really nail down the date. Is it on December 31, 2023? And then you go for it. Because for me, deadlines are sacred. And simply, a lot of people don't know what to write about. Wala silang idea. This is the genius why we're having the Write from the Heart webinars. We're going to remove all those obstacles and just start from your area of strength. Let's start from the things you know. And the heart knows a lot of things that our heads don't know, right? Mas malakas yung tibok ng puso mo, you know you're going for the right thing, intuitive, di ba? You have this intuition with you. So, tanggalin natin na hindi mo alam ang isusulat mo. I'm gonna teach you about poetry that you can use para readily you can start writing today. Okay? If I am okay lang ba ang pacing natin? Can you type yes? So that I know na okay lang yung aking pagsasalita. Sometimes I have the tendency to speak fast. Okay, very good. Oh, you're here with me. Thank you. You have questions? Park them. Later, I'm going to tackle your questions. Okay? And I want you to really ask so that you will remove all the obstacles getting in the way of you writing a poetry book. Why did I emphasize a great book? Now, I believe that in other programs, you can write a book in like 30 days. Yes, you can do that. Even 1 week nga kaya mo eh. But for me, it has always been a quality book. My principle is write your book the first time, write the first time. Dapat tama ang pagsusulat mo. It should be quality. Kasi yan yung legacy inking tayo eh. Something you will be proud of in the future. Something that you will treasure and your children's children will treasure as well. Kaya let's go for a great book. If you're ready to write a great book with me, let's go. Now, what is poetry? Simply, kayo, tinan natin sa mga sagot ninyo. How do you define poetry? In your own terms. Okay, waiting for some answers. Wag mahiya. All right, let me share some of the definitions of poetry that I really love. Number one came from former US poet laureate Rita Dove. Sabi niya, poetry is language at its most distilled and most powerful. Check on this. According to Carl, it's life but with no dead air. Love that. According to Glory, literature, art, expression of feelings, definitely. From Michael Rhymes and Reasons. Wow, yeah. Lumalabas na ang kanilang mga poetic mga definitions natin. Expression of heart through art. That's nice. Thank you, Maria. So I definitely believe in this, that it's really a powerful language. Because in poetry, you just don't use, I'm not saying it's simple, but you carefully choose the right words to depict the emotions, the heightened emotions you're going through. And there should be vividness in your images. So yan pag-aralan natin. According to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, prose is words in their best order, but poetry is the best words in the best order. Kaya nga minsan, even if you only have a one-liner there, it can definitely change the person's perspective, a person's mood. And according to Arlen Artabios from Dovilion, we're all born poets. It's the living that can suck poetry out of our lives. Poetry is a role for which I never wish to apologize. Yung tipong every day you just go out and suddenly you got hit by a sudden strong feeling. You can't help but just document it. You grab your phone, write it on your notes. If you're like me, on a daily basis, even with my notebook or cell phone, some lines will just come to my head. If I look at an object or I look at my surrounding, there will be a well of feelings. And then, isusulat ko yung mga lines na yon up until nakolekta ko siya, nabuo ko. I don't write fast. I cannot write poetry, one poem in one sitting. I don't. Usually it takes me a week to really process a certain piece. So yun. Just giving you to those who are yet starting to write poetry, that's it. There are 3 things that you should know, which are the key elements of poetry. Number 1 is rhythm. You have the sound, the rhyme, and the meter. Ang pagkakaiba nito is that meron siyang certain cadence, meron siyang certain beat that you don't normally hear when you write or when you read a certain straight writing, di ba? Yung tinatawag nating non-fiction. You try reading a newspaper, a magazine, it's totally different. Ito parang, because words have sounds and words dance. When you're a poet, you know how to make these words dance. Tama ba? The other thing is meron siyang certain forms. Meron mga long, traditional forms. May mga tinatawag natin dyan na, ano ba yung itsura nito? Okay? And there will be forms that I will teach you in a while. And then, of course, hindi natin pwedeng mawala ang literary devices. The literary devices can help you enhance your further even more. Na parang ganito lang yan. You don't say, ang ganda nito. This is beautiful. For a poet, there are certain ways for you to say that this is beautiful. You don't say, I'm sad. No, you don't do that. When you write poetry, you don't say, I'm sad. What do? You show them, not tell. Through your vivid images, through your words, through literary devices, you can achieve all of those things. Now, I want you to listen to this video and make sure that you capture the most important things that would surface and ano yung mga takeaways ninyo, because this will help you understand and gain a deeper appreciation of what poetry is. Okay, let's listen. Let's watch it.
Muhammad Ali spent years training to become the greatest boxer the world had ever seen, but only moments to create the shortest poem. Ali captivated Harvard's graduating class in 1975 with his message of unity and friendship. When he finished, the audience wanted more. They wanted a poem. Ali delivered what is considered the shortest poem ever. Me, we. Or is it me, we? No one's really sure. Regardless, if these 2 words are a poem, then what exactly makes a poem a poem? Poets themselves have struggled with this question, often using metaphors to approximate a definition. Is a poem a little machine, a firework, an echo, a dream? Poetry generally has certain recognizable characteristics. 1. Poems emphasize language's musical qualities. This can be achieved through rhyme, rhythm, and meter, from the sonnets of Shakespeare to the odes of Confucius to the Sanskrit Vedas. 2. Poems use condensed language, like literature, with all the water wrung out of it. 3. Poems often feature intense feelings, from Rumi's spiritual poetry to Pablo Neruda's Ode to an Onion. Poetry, like art itself, has a way of challenging simple definitions. While the rhythmic patterns of the earliest poems were a way to remember stories even before the advent of writing, a poem doesn't need to be lyrical. Rainer Doll's Apfel and Eugen Gomringer's Silencio toe the line between visual art and poetry. Meanwhile, E. Cummings wrote poems whose shapes were as important as the words themselves, in this case, amplifying the sad loneliness of a single leaf falling through space. If the visual nature of poetry faded into the background, perhaps we'd be left with music. And that's an area that people love to debate. Are songs poems? Many don't regard songwriters as poets in a literary sense, but lyrics from artists like Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, and Tupac Shakur often hold up even without the music. In rap, poetic elements like rhyme, rhythm, and imagery are inseparable from the form. Take this lyric from the Notorious B.I.G. I can hear sweat trickling down your cheek. Your heartbeats sound like Sasquatch feet, thundering, shaking the concrete. So far, all the examples we've seen have had line breaks. We can even imagine the two words of Ali's poem organizing in the air: me, we. Poetry has a shape that we can usually recognize. Its line breaks help readers navigate the rhythms of a poem. But what if those line breaks disappeared? Would it lose its essence as a poem? Maybe not. Enter the prose poem. Prose poems use vivid images and wordplay, but are formatted like paragraphs. When we look at poetry less as a form and more as a concept, we can see the poetic all around us. Spiritual hymns, the speeches of orators like Martin Luther King Jr., JFK, and Winston Churchill, and surprising places like social media. In 2010, journalist Joanna Smith tweeted updates from the earthquake in Haiti. Was in B-room getting dressed when heard my name. Tremor. Ran outside through sliding door. All still now. Safe. Roosters crowing. Smith uses language in a way that is powerful, direct, and filled with vivid images. Compare her language to a haiku, the ancient Japanese poetic form that emphasizes bursts of brief intensity, with just 3 lines of 5, 7, and 5 syllables. The waters of poetry run wide and deep. Poetry has evolved over time, and perhaps now more than ever, the line between poetry, prose, song, and visual art has blurred. However, one thing has not changed. The word poetry actually began in verb form, coming from the ancient Greek poiesis, which means to create. Poets, like craftsmen, still work with the raw materials of the world to forge new understandings and comment on what it is to be human in a way only humans can. Dartmouth researchers tested this idea by asking robots to pen poetry. A panel of judges sorted through stacks of sonnets to see if they could distinguish those made by man and machine. You may be happy to know that while scientists have successfully used artificial intelligence in manufacturing, medicine, and even journalism, poetry is a different story. The robots were caught red-handed 100% of the time.
Yeah, I love that. So, please let me know, ano yung nakuha ninyo? What was your biggest takeaway from what you have just watched? Anything that you'd like to share in our chat box? I've watched this many times and it gives me this confidence that even with the advent of our AI, which is overtaking the world today as we speak, they say that eventually writers will no longer have their careers. And slowly, I've tried it. They can really come up with AI can come up with really good writing. But then think about how an AI would like poetry in the absence of a human touch. It's totally different. So I hope you got something from that video that can help you understand more why we need to write poetry. It's because basically it lives in us, in all of us, and it's everywhere. You just have to tap into your inner soul, so to speak, para mas ma-appreciate mo. It's a deeper understanding, a deeper sense of gratitude, a deeper perspective or handling of things around you. When you're a poet, you look at things differently. Okay? So now with this, let's move on and show you now. Okay, kapit kayo. I don't want you to miss any of this. I'll now teach you how to write your poetry book. Okay, if you're ready. Number one, write daily. Why? This is a habit that can help you come up with a substantial amount of work that eventually you can convert that into a book. For example, when I started writing my journals, diary lang, when I was 9 years old, because in the church, we were trained to do so. Hindi ko naman inisip that eventually this writing would benefit me big time. Pero when I started looking back on what I have written for so many years, I just realized there are so many patterns. There's so many recurrences. And nakita ko, and I came to find out who I am really. Ano yung mga tinatreasure ko, what makes me sad, what makes me mad, mga tipong ganon. And it's also a deep spiritual awakening for me as well. Kaya if you want to find out your thoughts really, if you want to find out ano ba talaga ang mga nasa puso mo, you write daily. Especially schedule it when your mind is fresh. I do it in the morning at 4 a.m. because that's where I can gather everything that have just transpired. Ano ba yung mga iniisip ko? Wala pang magulo. It's totally free of any clutter and any noise around me. So, especially if you are just beginning to write, kung di ka pa talaga writer, the only practice you can ever get is to write daily. Yes, you can read, but the thing is, can you transfer that skill of reading into your writing? Kailangan magkaroon ng connection ng iyong mind down to your fingers as you write them. So please write. And if you're like me, I still use my pen and my paper. Okay pa rin sa phone, but hindi pa rin nawawala yung attachment ko. I have a deep affinity for pens and notebooks. Talagang hindi nawawala yan. Okay, so it's up to you. It can be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, it doesn't matter. But just write daily. The other thing is dabble in poetry. You want to find out how poets write their poetry books? Read a lot of poetry books. It's as simple as that. So, sino ba ang mga gusto mong i-follow? What kind of poetry are you leaning into? Then, sundan mo kung sino yung mga authors na yon, because they can give you an in-depth journey or adventure towards their writing. And the more you are exposed to different kinds of writing, the more you will become creative. Kasi magkakaroon na siya ng amalgamation. Nagkakaroon na siya ngayon ng parang a great mix of all the geniuses around you. So don't be afraid. Sometimes nga you will copy a line or two, but don't copy because according to that, plagiarism will definitely destroy your career. Ang ibig sabihin nito is you copied the greats in a sense that you look for their style and try to write that way as well. So dabble in poetry. The next thing I'd like to tell you is this. Experiment with forms. Now, if you are looking at the screen right now, below is where I'm giving you the link to 50 poetic forms for poets. Ano nga ba yung mga iba't ibang forms na you have? The haiku, tanka, ballad, odes, ang dami niyan, villanelle, limericks. So, before you can get out of the conventional, the traditional poetry forms, I strongly suggest i-master mo muna yung traditional forms. Because this will give you the experience, this will give you the substance when you are writing. Ang problema kasi sa maraming modern writers ngayon, especially young ones, hindi ko naman nila lahat, they think that poetry is just an outburst of emotion. Nagalit, nagsulat. Okay? So yun na yun. But actually, if you're going to compare a person writing who has experience with traditional poetry, makikita mo ang angat. Iba ang kanyang texture, yung kanyang pagsusulat. Iba. Rather than just ranting, you know what ranting is, right? Pag nasa Facebook, ang daming taong nagrarante. So parang ganon, there is this cheap, mediocre poetry, but you also want to go for an elegant kind of poetry. If that is your goal, then definitely, by all means, try your hand on the different forms of poetry. And it's gonna be so fun, I tell you, learning all of this. And before you know it, aba, ang galing-galing ko na pala magsulat ngayon ng ballads or ang galing-galing ko na magsulat ng sonnet ngayon. Sa una, ang hirap, but challenge yourself. And I've given you the link to that. Some of those forms are haiku, 575. We're talking about the syllables. My favorite is tanka because it talks about deep emotions. Ballad, you have sonnet. And then, how many of you have tried blackout poetry here? Blackout poetry happens when you take a piece of writing. Let's say, nasa Time magazine ka. Yung one page na yon, you look at it. Tapos, ang gagawin mo, pag merong mga lumutang na words na gustong-gusto mo, encircle that. Encircle mo. Yung mga words that have connected with you. And then after the exercise, after you have circled all the words that you know, you take a pentel pen and then you black out everything until ang natitira na lang yung mga words na binilugan mo. And you know what? You'll be surprised because that's another creation that you will make. It's a poetry. And this is one of the most important, or one of the things that I enjoy doing is doing blackout poetry. And I have a collection of that already. Try it. So if you want to know more, you can just Google and YouTube about it. And then of course, the free verse or the blank verse, yan din naman ang madalas kong sinusulat. After I have gone through, during the first years of my training, writing poetry, after I have gone through writing haiku, a lot of tanka, and a lot of, hindi naman ganun karami, but I also tried all of this. In fact, one of my goals is to write one poem for every form. Pag nagawa mo yun, meron ka ng another poetry book, di ba? Meron din akong isang friend from Australia, Jai Tulin. Ang ginawa naman niya is daily, he writes poetry for the next 365 days. And so after that, pinublish niya yung book niya, year-ender. Meron siyang 365 poems. Isn't it nice to just record your trail of thoughts for that 1 year? So yes, experiment with forms. You go to this link and then study everything. Another is ditch the cliches. This is one of the things that medyo nalulungkot ako because sabi ko nga, yung mga bagong writers without knowing, they think that they have written a good poem already. But actually what they have written is just a cliched writing. What do I mean by this? How often do you use this in your poems? Your lines, you are the apple of my eye, a heart full of sorrow, from the bottom of my soul to infinity and beyond. I never knew what love was till I met you. That's a song. Save this dying heart, feeling lost in blue. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't write poetry this way. This is what you call cliches. If you're writing this way, you better stop writing and transform your writing. Hindi pwede. And sadly, there are writers, because of course, hindi naman natin sila mapipigil even if they're your writers. They still go for the cliches. And they don't want to learn. Sad lang. But you are here and you're hearing this straight from me. If you're trying to impress a publisher, if you're trying to impress someone, especially someone who knows about poetry, you don't serve them with cliches. They already know firsthand pag binasa ka agad yung manuscript mo, okay, this is it, garbage, wala, tapos na siya. So why am I emphasizing this too much? It's because it's elsewhere. Napakadami talaga, so rampant with modern young writers today. Okay? Now, the other is you have to learn the literary devices. Why devices? Because when you use them, you create new connections. You give them rich layers of sound, sense, emotion, narrative, and ultimately meaning that surpass the literal details being recounted. So this is what sets literature apart and what makes it uniquely powerful. Pag daily conversation, we're having this conversational English or Filipino, conversational tayo. Hindi naman talaga tayo nag-edit along the way, right? Hindi naman tayo super formal. We want to speak as if we are just talking to somebody. However, when you transfer that into poetry writing, you can still maintain the conversational tone. Pwede pa rin magkaroon ka ng ganyang klase. But at the same time, you elevate you will elevate your writing. You will elevate the language. Because that's when your poetry will work. Okay? Now, some of these literary devices are the following: metaphor, simile, analogy, imagery, symbolism, personification, hyperbole, irony, juxtaposition, paradox, allusion, allegory, and there's a lot more. In the link I provided below on the screen, you will find about 150 literary devices. Let me repeat that. You'll find about 150 literary devices. To think of it as if you have a set of toolbox. Di ba? It's a set of tools in a box, a toolbox. Meron kang pang hammer, meron kang pang saw, meron kang pang mga tornilyo. So think of it this way. When you are a writer, you also have a toolbox, and this toolbox is comprised of literary devices. Have fun with it. Now you have fun working with different forms, have fun working with different literary devices, and wow, you can definitely elevate your writing. Okay ba? So, example, this is from my latest. If you're gonna look at my video right now, I'm holding the book. This is my latest book. I illustrated this one. I did everything for this. Although we have artists in our company, but when I write my book, I want hands-on. Ako talaga. So these are some of the metaphors. And as poets, you should be masters of metaphors. Forget about the other literary devices, but do not forget about the metaphors. That's your number one assignment. Find out what it is. It is likening something to something else without the like and us. Di ba? Pag simile, yun. But pag metaphor, direct connection siya. For example, these lines were taken from my recent poetry book, Chasm. I'm a warrior in blood lipstick, a forlorn figure in a street of alabaster. I'm a disfigured porcelain doll reeking with infirmities. I'm an asphalt cracking under the unforgiving weight of a burden. I'm an expired currency, stripped of power, frowned upon. I'm a nomad in an apocryphal story, a worn-out body traveling the desert. I'm the detritus of a long-fought war, played pawn by insolent fools. I really love working with metaphors. If you're going to read my books, my poetry books, you'll see metaphors scattered everywhere. Hindi ko tinitipid talaga. Pag nasa kahit isang maliit lang yan, isang stanza lang yan, you will really see a metaphor in there. Okay? There are so many things that I can talk about poetry all day long, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends. But I'm just giving you the basics that you can start with so that after this, pag natapos tayo ng webinar natin, you can just go back, go to your bed, and grab your notebook and pen and start writing poetry. That is my goal for you. And hopefully, I keep inspiring you tonight so that you'll know, mailabas mo na rin yung mga nakatago dyan sa'yo. Alright? So here are the examples of metaphors. Another thing is for you to ask for honest feedback, especially if you think you are that good. Tama ba yung sinabi ko? If you're very confident that you are so good, you're an expert already, why not ask around from people who are also experts? Kasi ang hirap makita yung sarili mong mali. That's true. An editor needs another editor. I don't edit my book. I need another editor because I will miss a lot of things. But I can edit other people's work. So you see what I'm headed to this discussion. It's because why honest feedback? Your friends will tell you you're a good writer. Your mom, your dad, your kids will tell you you're a good writer. But please open up yourself to other people na medyo naman nakaangat na din ng konti. There are more credible writers, in other words. Ask for feedback. And then, when you get a feedback, seryosohin mo. Especially if you think that these are valid, it's not just about getting feedback. Hindi kasi yung feedback sa'yo eh. Nagpapa-feedback ka doon sa ginawa mo. Magkaiba yon. Therefore, keep an open mind and ask people, is this good already? And when they say, no, it's not, then accept it and rework it. Because my next advice is this, revise. You gotta keep revising the things you've written the first time. When you publish a book, it's not the first manuscript or the first draft that is being published. It goes through a lot of processes of editing. Diba? Meron pa yung copy editing, line editing, developmental editing, maraming revisions. In the same manner, when you write a poem today, Iwanan mo muna yan and then balikan mo after a day, after a week. And I tell you, you will have a different attack. You will have a different look and feel of the poem, and so much that sometimes you will be led to revise it even more. And before you know it, wow, it's already a masterpiece. So you can, ang sarap yakapin, ang sarap balik-balikan, lalo pag binabasa mo out loud, pag yung sarili mong gawa, ang sarap ng feeling nun. So remember that revision is the heart of writing. Every page, sabi ni Patricia, I do is done over 7 or 8 times. Yeah, this is true. And even more than that. Okay? So do not just trust that you are a good writer and that you're in it for matagal na, because anybody can get something from other people's honest feedback about their work. Okay? Next, let's talk about, okay, Coach Ayo, we understand how it goes, but paano ba come up with a poetry book? Then I'm gonna tell you that there are different poetry books that you can play up with or play around with. Number one is the chapbook. Chapbook is about 20 to 40 pages lang. Manipis lang yan. Okay? Lalo na kung talagang atat ka talaga na gusto mo na makapag-publish ka agad ng poetry book mo, go for a chapbook. And sa Amazon naman, sa Kindle Direct Publishing, you already have an option for a hardbound, which is laminated. So maganda yan. Maganda na kapag nilagay mo yan. But if you want to go for a full-length poetry book, you can have 50 to 70 pages. Actually, ang tawag ko dito, mid-length pa to eh. Yung 50 to 70 is just mid-length. My book Kasam is only mid-length kasi it only has about 80 pages. Kasama pa dun yung review, kasama pa yung table of contents. But this is what we call 57 to 70 pages of pure poetry. Now, if you're going to go for publishing your book and you want the title to appear on the spine, then you go for 100 pages. Okay? I hope that's clear to everybody. But if you're like Charles Bukowski, one of my favorite authors, ang kakapal ng mga libro niya. Halagang collection. Pablo Neruda is another one that I love. And Atticus lately, I'm reading his book. Napakita ko sa inyo mamaya. Yan. So I hope you get a screenshot of this. But anyway, you have the video recording naman. And I'm gonna send the PDF copy. Not the PowerPoint, but the PDF copy of this slides. Okay? I hope that's a good deal with you. So ito ngayon yan. Think of a killer title. After, bakit nilagay ko sa dulo to? Kasi a lot of people are stuck with the title. Ang akin naman is, I go the other way. Reverse ako eh. Nag-iisip muna ako ng killer title. Because that's how I operate. Iba-iba lang talaga tayo. But in the end, I usually change my mind. Especially pag nakita ko na yung collection, the bulk of the collection, what this is about, doon ko na siya na iintindihan na, hindi pala talaga dapat ito ang title nito. Now, when you think of a title, it should encapsulate, okay? Let me repeat the word. It should encapsulate what is the content of your poetry book. Kaya kung babalikan ninyo, sabi ko kanina, organize ninyo and choose your best pieces. Kasi hindi lahat ng sinulat mo, pwede mong ipilit sa isang poetry book na wala naman siyang connection doon sa naging poetry collection mo. Does that make sense? Kaya nga sabi ko, babalikan ko yung first advice sa inyo, you write daily para marami kang mga materials na pagkukuhanan. And then after that, pag na-revise mo, gumanda na siya, na-polish na. Now it's time to organize into chapters or into themes. When I write poetry books, I base it on themes. Kaya itong Kasam ko, it's all about me being on the edge. Being on the edge of things, na parang mahuhulog na ako. It's good for good or for bad. The other book that I have is the Chiaroscuro, if you're seeing my screen today, right now. So ito naman, no, kasi nakita ko, it's a trend right now. You have the black and white na mga covers. Yeah, so sasabihin ko rin sa inyo yan sa mga susunod nating webinars, how I should not go ahead of this, but just very excited to share with you. Yun din, think of a killer title that people will resonate with, catchy, hindi masyadong mahaba, and people will like, because the moment a person steps into the National Bookstore or the Fully Booked, or they browse through the Amazon bookstore or other mga retail stores online, I tell you, they only have a few seconds to look at your book. Not even 10 seconds. You don't have that luxury of time. Sometimes it's just 7 seconds they will look at your book. So two things that will catch their attention. Number one is the title. The other two is the design. Okay? Dalawa lang yan. Kaya you can judge the book by its cover. Pag ikaw ay nagsusulat ng libro, you cannot ditch these very important reminders or tips that I'm giving you right now. Pro tip talaga to. Design of the book and the title. Think of them. Ito yung some of my favorite books today na nasa poetry genre. Okay? All of it is you. Wow, ang ganda talaga. You know why? Because this book has illustrations in it. And ang kagandahan nito, it's like the love of that person being the love of the person. It's connecting his life to everything around him. The clock, the soap, the sun, the moon, the spoon, the fork, yan. Diyan niya inikot yung how he relates life to different things. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, ordinary things made special because of what you know about poetry. Of course, sino namang hindi nakakakilala kay Atticus. Yung mga kanya mga palagang punchline, diba? Mga hugot lines. And Pleasures of the Damned, Charles Bukowski, if you're new to Charles Bukowski, he totally reinvented poetry because ang kanyang is as if salitang kanto lang. The daily things, but iba ang kanyang atake. I don't want to go ahead with it. I want you to really read Charles Bukowski, and most of my writing are patterned after his. I copied him. Marami na rin ako kinokopya. The styles, and then sabi ko nga sa inyo, eventually, you will come out like your own your own voice, your own style na after you have been introduced to different materials. Okay? So have fun with all of these things that I'm telling you. Sometimes it's not just about writing, it's just about exploration muna eh. You gotta read a lot before you can even come up with a good writing, a good piece of writing. Okay? So think of a killer title, and when all of this is done, you can add some spices to it, then you can now illustrate your book. Okay? Katulad nito. This is an invented poetry. It's called Tangka. It's not Tangka. Oh, it is from Danny Gallardo. So, para siyang five lines, but 1 word per line, 2 words sa second line, 3 words sa third line, 4 words sa fourth line, and then 5 words sa fifth line, and then you're gonna reverse it, and then go to the first form, and then reverse it. So, bakit gusto mong illustrate? Because you wanna eliminate that boredom. Ayaw mo ring parang na, di ba pag puro text ang nakikita mo, they kind of really hurt the eyes. So, you have to break that monotony of text. That's why you have to at least illustrate it minimalist illustration. You can go for it. I'm gonna tell you, it's so fun. There's so many places you can go to get free art, and then pwede mo na lang siyang baguhin because you cannot copy 100%. Then that's gonna be against the rules then of these artists. When you copy something, make sure that proper attribution is given, and at the same time, hindi mo i-copy 100%. Unless you bought the design straight from that, and then that gives you the full access and the full use of that image. Okay? So this is it. Illustrate your book, because I tell you, it's really fun. And a lot of books that you'll see right now na mga poetry are all illustrated. As we draw close to our first learning session tonight, here are some important pro tips I want to tell you. Number 1 is master the basics. If you are starting lang, if you're just starting here in poetry writing, please do not go get your pen and write from the bottom of your heart. Another cliche. No. Pag-aralan mo muna, ano yung mga poetry forms. That's why I gave you the link. Gain some confidence. Gain some competence about it. And then, pagdating dyan, you start writing. Kahit hindi pa pro. Basta lang sulat ka ng sulat. Ask for feedback and then copy the grades. This is one of the most important things that you can do. This is not illegal. This is not a sin. When it comes to art, when it comes to literature, you copy the grades. Because they already know. Ang hindi mo ikakopy, yung verbatim, hindi mo kokopyahin yung ginawa nila. Ikakopy mo yung style nila. Am I clear on that? Because baka bigla ka ma-flag down dyan. And ang mga writers na nababrand as plagiarists, hindi na talaga nakakabangon sa mga careers nila. So, be aware of this important thing when you are a writer. minsan nga, pagka ang kinopya mo yung napakasikat, kahit kinopya mo lang isang line, pagka sinundan ka ng legal battle niyan, talo ka. So, sayang naman yung sinumulan mo. Well, I'm saying this because it's as if there is a lot of plagiarism and cheating done on social media. And sometimes people think that it's just a common thing to do, but it's not. It's done by people who are cheap. Those who have no vision, those who do not care about their careers at all. And then lastly, if you can master the basic and you can copy the grades, then you can go to the next level, which is you will now be an inventor. Poetry is all about creation. It's all about organization. It's as if you're just trying to grasp, you're trying to pluck ideas out of thin air. Tapos you're going to mix all of them in your head. It takes a process, para siyang suka na fina-ferment, di ba? Yung coconut juice, you lay it there for several days, weeks, and months until na-ferment na siya, then that's ready for the taking. Pwede na siya magamit. Isaw-saw mo na yung chicharon mo dyan, right? So this is all about the world, not all about. This is just a glimpse of a beautiful world called poetry. Napakaganda po talaga nito. And another thing is that poetry helps with your mental health. It's a good way for you to really have an outlet in life. Sometimes it's not just about, hindi na makaagad words yan pagalingan, magaling ka na kaagad. No, you start with just bleeding on paper. You start with just having a brain dump, okay? Yun yun. And then, when you're done, ayan. So, I want you to study or at least get introduced to poetry writing. So, I'm giving you a free copy of my poetry book in PDF, all right? So, if you go to www.inkyourlegacy.com, that is where you can subscribe. Once you hit subscribe, then we will be sending you your copy of the PDF of Casa, PDF copy of my newest poetry book called Casa, okay? And start na. Maghanap na kayo ng mga iba't ibang mga poetry books that can intrigue you, that can inspire, that can make you cry. Iba-iba mga emotions yan. Alright? So with this, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, I'll be with you again. This time naman, para ito sa mga mahilig magbasa ng scriptures. Ang kanilang, yung kanilang spiritual life is on top most of everything that they do. And it's about their firm and their loving relationship with their maker, their God, whoever it is for you. We're going to talk about these things more than religion, okay? This is not about religion. This is about spirituality, and it's totally different. You can be in a religion but not being spiritual. So a devotional book, I'll tell you tomorrow how you're going to write it. How, just by loving the scriptures, just by memorizing some of the scriptures and trying to inspire people that can lead them to God, to some reawakening, to some repentance or some other processes. You can also come up with a devotional book that people can use for their own lives and be inspired as well. Okay, with this, I am officially ending the discussion on the how to write a poetry book. All right, so tinigil ko na yan so that we can have a good discussion tonight. Did you learn something? Nakinig ba kayo? Okay, very good. You can turn on your video and just ask me now. If you have questions, you have some clarifications, now is the time to do so. Just raise your hand and then I'll call you one by one. While waiting for that, let me address those that are found on the chat box. Here sa ating mga chat. Number 1 is how many days po yung nagpapublish sa Amazon, kung pwede na po bang masagot. Definitely, I can answer that. That is 72 hours or less. When you are a first-time writer, author, normally it takes longer. Talagang nasasagad yung 72 hours. Pag walang issues ang book mo, sometimes nasasagot yan in just one day. Napapublish na kagad siya. It goes live within the next 24 hours. Pag maraming issues such as yung mga dimensions ng book mo, and it's actually one of the upcoming webinars that I'll be having this first week of April, and that is the Kindle Direct Publishing Do It Yourself. Kasi ang dami nagre-request sa akin, paano na nila ipapublish yung book na meron na sila. So I finally decided, okay, why not give part of what I teach also for another webinar. So definitely 72 hours, then you can have your book on live na sa Amazon. The other question is, kapag na-publish na po, pwede po ba baguhin or edit yung nasa loob ng book? That's a good thing. Okay, two ways to answer this is, number one, if you go for a traditional publisher, you have a contract with them. Everything that's final and that's published, that's something you cannot just remove from the shelves pag hindi mo na gusto, may nakita kang mali. No, kailangan ubusin mo na yung mga copy na yon, physical copies. However, if you are a self-published author and you are the one putting your book there on Amazon, on Kobo, and other na mga outlets, then within one day, you can just change the cover, you can just change the manuscript. You have the full liberty of doing that. So yan. Hopefully nasagot ko Ano pong advantage ng English language or Tagalog language in writing a book? Well, of course, you know, the reach, the mileage. When you write Filipino books, then ang iyong clientele, ang iyong readers will only be Filipino speakers, writers. But whereas if it's English, then of course ang reach mo everywhere. Lalo na pag napunta ka na sa KDP, ang dami-daming marketplaces na nag-open ngayon. Kaya make them available for a vast number of people. Okay? Ang ginagawa ng iba, they have the poetry book in Filipino, and then the second half of the book is the English translation. That's exactly what I did for this, yung Chiaroscuro. That's what I did. I realized that there is a potential market if I would have it translated into major languages. So that's why I decided to go for Italian, French, and Spanish. Okay? Nakasagot ko ba yung question? Is there a possibility for us to ask for your feedback regarding our poems? Oh, definitely. Definitely. I love reading poetry, so definitely can ask me about what you read, what we have written. Okay, and I'm gonna give you my honest feedback, of course. Okay? Anong topics don't get much of an audience po? Oh, this is a good story. This is a good question. Now, when it comes to poetry, maririnig mo naman talaga to Doesn't sell so much. Diba? Romance is an all-time high across ages. As in, across millennia. Palagi yan. So, kung ang tanong natin is, ano ang mga topics na hindi masyadong, ano ba? Tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko? Ano yung mga topics na hindi masyadong pinapansin ng audience? Yung mga topics na hindi sila nakaka-relate. Halimbawa, kasi napakagaling mo sa vocabulary. Kasi gusto mo i-display yung galing mo, yung prowess mo sa alam mo mga words, hindi naman na naintindihan. So, paano naman yun? Kaya nga napansin mo, it's not just about that. It's about connection. Poetry is about emotional connection to people. Minsan, ini-snub natin yung mga Instagram poets, TikTok poets. Sabi nila, hugot lang yun. But the thing is, why do these poetry books sell so much? Because they relate to people yung mga hugot na ganun. Basahin niyo yung kay Rupi Kaur. Basahin niyo rin kay, sino ba yung sad girls? Please help me with this author. Patay, pagagalitan ako. Paki-google nga. Anyway, basahin niyo yung mga poetry nila. Small line, fewer lines lang talaga. Minsan, isang paragraph na hinati-hati lang siya, pinahaba lang. Di ba? Sometimes ganun sinasabi nila. But the thing is, they connect well with people. Romance is an all-time high. But if you're going to just go for self-expression, don't expect too much that people will relate with you. So, you gotta choose. You gotta choose kung sino yung gusto mong maging readers ng poetry mo. Okay? It's much, kasi niche talaga ang poetry. Not everybody will buy it. Not everybody will read it. So, ngayon palang tanggapin mo na the possibility that some of your books, some of your works will not be celebrated. Okay. Nasagot ko ba? Yung question po, nasagot na. Salamat. Alright. Hard copy or yung physical books ang ibebenta sa Amazon. Okay, this is what we call the print on demand. When you put your book on Kindle Direct Publishing, that's the publishing arm of Amazon. So you go for 3 options. You have an ebook, you have a soft copy, and you have the hardbound. So tatlo available yun. Pag may nag-order sa inyo, let's say from Germany, nakita yung book mo naka-display. Mag-order siya ng book, siya magbabayad ng book, siya rin magbabayad ng shipping fee. Ang tawag doon ay print on demand. Walang overhead cost sa'yo as the one who published your book. Which is totally different when you, katulad ako, kami mag-asawa, yung mga books namin nung una, nilagay namin sa National Bookstore. Lahat ng inventory sa amin, ang collection, everything, and we are paid after 3 months. So, nakita namin that it's more of a status than a reality. But when we started putting our books on Amazon, that's where it finally took off. The books finally are amassing a lot of audiences And we can do a lot creatively, di ba? Sa marketing side lang nito, we have the full freedom. But at the same time, if you're just starting, I'm telling you, kailangan mo din ng mga marketing skills din doon. So yeah, on Amazon, you can have 3 options. Ebook, not only 3. Ebook, softbound, hardbound, audiobook. Yan. Yan ang, ngayon, selling like pancakes today. I do not really write. I just attended this webinar to learn new skill. I hope I got this talent. Okay. Skill in me sana, hindi cliche but a real poem. Okay? How can you get past this feeling na hindi ka pa magaling? All I can tell you is that start writing. That's it. Start ka lang talaga. So, kung hindi ka pa marunong magsulat ng haiku, start ka na magsulat ng haiku. Kung gusto mo lang naman ng for fun, try the blackout poetry. The thing is, when you have an affinity with words all the time, kung palagi kang, alam mo yun, you are an active pursuer of words, you will hear their music. Sorry, may medyo ba pagka-OA yung pagkakasalita ko, but you will hear the musicality of words. Na kapag ka alam mo kung saan siya dapat gamitin, pag marami ka ng practice, you just know which are the best words that fit your emotions or what you're thinking or the concepts. Okay? I cannot really tell you how to self-publish because it takes another webinar. But if you can wait for that for another webinar, I will reveal everything there. But if you cannot wait also, there's also another course that I have. It's there, the www.inkyourlegacy.com, where everything I talk about from creating, writing it, self-publishing or traditional publishing, and then marketing your book. But that's for you to find out naman. Paano po mag-self-publish? Ituturo ko yung sa isang webinar natin. Right now, our goal is to get you started with writing so that you will have a material what to publish. So we still have 3 lessons, learning sessions para makita nyo saan ba ako. Baka kasi talagang, hindi poetry. Then, meron ka pang chance tomorrow. You still have 3. You have the devotional, you have the self-help, and then you also have the memoir. Isa rin itong gustong-gusto ko, okay? So, please, a few more minutes before we finally close our Zoom hall para sa mga questions ninyo or clarifications. Anyone, please? Feel free to raise your hands. Going once? Or tayo nagbibid? Going twice? Okay, can you help me also how to be a children's book author? Yeah, sure. Do we need agents po for traditional publishing? Yes, you definitely need. But there are different kind of publishers today na they also have self-published authors. Ang model ng publishing namin is that we are not a traditional publisher. We give services. We have paid services for self-published authors. So the one who makes covers, the illustrations, yon, editing and everything. So if you want to go for traditional publishers, you definitely need agents for this. Okay? Madaming questions, ha? All right. Jenny. Okay, Jen, go ahead, Jen. Unmute ka.
May tanong lang ako, Sir Ayo. Narinig mo ako?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Oo. Kasi konti lang naman talaga yung input ko pa lang. Ngayon, may uncle kasi ako na nasa na talaga siya, yung bang 70 plus na. Pero he used to be a writer. Ang dami niyang entries sa journal niya, mga poems niya. Ang dami niyang gaganda. And I even encourage him to write a book. Kaya lang, matanda na nga siya. Pwede ba yun, halimbawa, kasi nakita ko yung anthology book mo.
Oo.
Parang, di ba, collections of yun? So,
Yeah,
pwede yun.
from
Tapos may
different
mga friends din ako dito na ang gagaling nila. So, pwede yun i-gather ko. Tapos, paano ba yun? Paano yung ginagawa sa gano'n?
Parang
konti
ikaw
lang yung sa
ngayon-
akin doon. Kumbaga, mas marami sa kanila.
Oo. So, ikaw ngayon yung, ikaw ngayon yung
Paano yun?
compiler. Ikaw ang magiging compiler. So, ikaw
Oo.
ngayon ang mag-act as the compiler.
Oo, pero meron din akong input. Mag-i-input din ako.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so,
Mag-i-input din ako ng parang yung konti ko.
oo. Well, sabi ko nga
So,
kanina,
pwede yun.
kapag
Possible
nagsisimula
yun.
kayo, go for anthology projects para makapag-gain kayo ng experience. Yung
Oo.
parang ginawa din natin sa ink natin, diba? Although this one are speeches from Toastmasters, natin, mga speeches. Yeah, so you can definitely go for that, Jen.
Ayun, yun. Oo.
Right?
Sige,
And
okay.
don't force sa 4-day webinars
Thank
natin.
you.
Mapag-uusapan po ba natin? Actually, you signed up for 4 learning sessions. Today is poetry and then devotional, self-help po, and then the other one is the memoir. Because these are just too much to tackle in just one webinar. Ayoko rin, I want to respect everybody's time. Kaya there will be a new set of learning sessions that will come out in April, so watch out for that po. Normal po bang writer's block? It is, yeah, but you shouldn't stick to that as your justification. Wala ka lang nasusulat because hindi ka nagsisil. Ang dapat mong gawin dyan is you just write daily until you can overcome your writer's block. Mostly, writer's block is all about laziness and procrastination. Sorry for that, but it is what it is. Wala akong masulat. And remember, wala kang i-revise kapag wala kang sinulat. Wala kang mapapublish pag wala kang sinulat. With all of the things that I gave you tonight, if you start dabbling in poetry, definitely you can start having, this habit of writing poetry, in so much that there will come a time you have enough material to publish a poetry book. Songs can be poems. The poems, of course, definitely. Yun nga the contention, the debate about that. Songs are definitely poems as well. Given the rhyme, the rhythm, right? The meter, yeah, definitely. Yung mga LDS hymns natin, diba? Those are also poems. Okay. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to we have to end this learning session and let all of the things that we tackled tonight sink in. And tingnan ninyo, if you need more, you can just reach out. Ando dun sa ating group chat, sa ating Facebook group. Throw your comments there, throw your questions there. I will be happy to answer them. Tomorrow, it's going to be another one. We're going to learn how to write devotional books, okay? So with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you again tomorrow. But tomorrow, it's going to be a recorded session, so I will be able to handle your questions on Friday, all right? So thank you, and